Good afternoon and welcome to the latest edition of Cult Classics TV series. This series comes from the 90s now, and we'll be delighted to be joined by one of the stars of the show. The show is Sister Sister. I'm delighted to be joined by the one and only Tim Reid, who played the male lead character, Mr. Ray Campbell. I suppose, Tim, Sister Sister, you shot the episode in November 1993. You had 6 seasons, 120 episodes. Overall, a resounding sort of success. And did you think maybe 27 years on that somebody from all across the Atlantic would be ringing you up, asking you about Sister Sister and Ray Campbell?
No, not really. I mean, I didn't even think the show was going to go a year, so let alone be talking about it this many years later. It didn't start off with a great fanfare. We were fortunate to somebody see something in it after we did a presentation, and they decided to try again and did another pilot. And that was the one that the WB network was just fledgling, trying to get started, and they needed content. And so we came about at the right time, and the rest is history. I had no idea it would go as long as it did.
And I suppose, Tim, you were sort of a budding actor when the time Sister Sister came out back in 1993. And in terms of the audition process, did a talent agent recommend it? Were you sort of scouted for the role? Did you go through an audition sort of process? Was it long and twangling to land the lead character, Ray Campbell? Or how did it come about for you? Was it sort of a free coincidence or a good sort of story?
Well, actually, I had retired from the business, and I had a couple shows that weren't as successful as myself and the critics thought. It was a show called Frank's Place, and it was well, reviewed and critically acclaimed, but we only did one season. And so I was so frustrated about that experience. I did another series after that I created called Snoops, and I just quit the business. So I was through, and was a gentleman farmer out in Charlottesville, Virginia, with I sold my Mercedes and bought a tractor, and kind of drove around moving gravel from one end of the farm to the other. And I got this call saying that they were interested in me and for this new show with these two young girls. And I thought about it, and I actually said no. I didn't want to go back to California. And eventually I thought about it. I went out and looked at it and said no again. And then finally, the executive producer, Suzanne DePass, a wonderful creative producer, she from Motown fame, and Lady Sings the Blues producer. She was a very formidable producer, and she convinced me. She made me an offer I could not refuse. So I decided to do the show, and I'm very fortunate that I was wise enough to change my mind.
And I suppose that Tim, obviously the two girls were the principal characters along with yourself and Jackie Harry. And you mentioned there, so in terms of your casting process, so were you the last main lead to be shot for this show? So in terms of being cast, was Jackie obviously cast before you were?
No, I was the first. Well, of course, the two twins were the first, and they were looking. The reason myself and Jack A. Hold on one second.
Yeah.
I have to call you back. I'm talking to a friend in Ireland. He said hello. All right, I'll call you back. Thank you. After I saw the twins, they were so young, they just turned 13. I mean, and they're very talented, but still they were fresh. They knew nothing about the business. So they needed some veterans around them. So myself and Jack Hay were the two that they chose to agree with. And Jack Hay was like myself. She wasn't sure that she wanted to do another show, but they convinced her as well. And we're very fortunate that we ended up with the girls. And they were green. They didn't know anything about it, but they had that unbelievable talent that you could see. It was raw, but you knew there was something there. So we spent a lot of time working with them and giving them what experience that we had in terms of comedy and timing. and it worked out to be wonderful. I will never forget the experience.
And I suppose, Tim, you mentioned there about being convinced to get on the show. When you saw the plot originally about sort of two girls, half sort of two sisters separated by birth, meeting in a shopping mall, their parents coming together and living together in the one house, it almost sounds a real tale of coincidence and lucky nine lives and fate for such a scenario to come about. Did you feel that it would sort of go down in terms of hate, that people would buy that sort of notion in terms of these people could act as a functional family?
Well, not really. I mean, and it was, you got to think about what comedies were like at that time. And they had a bit more depth in them. So when I saw it, it was just one of those happenstance kind of written shows. And I'm thinking like, I don't know. I mean, okay, things like that could happen, but is there a show here? What do you do show 2? I mean, year 2, year 3. And so it was so dependent on the talent of the young ladies who at that time we didn't see. We saw the potential, but not the incredible talent that they had. So the show kind of grew on me and grew on America. But in the beginning, no, I didn't see it. I didn't see the longevity. I saw the potential, but not the longevity. And now that I look back on it, that it's running on Netflix across the world, and I look at it, because I didn't see that many episodes. I probably, in all the years prior to Netflix showing it, I saw maybe 5 episodes. I never watched the show. Yeah. And so looking back on it now, I feel like, wow. Who knew? I mean, that the kind of comedy that grew out of the innocence of the young ladies and the veteran experience of Jackie and I was a nice fit. It was a nice glove. There was nothing quite like it, really, in television. It holds up today because of that. I think young people today, a whole new generation of young people, are seeing the sort of balance, the sort of natural kind of humor that sort of fits the experience of the Z generation today. I mean, today that show certainly mirrors what's going on in a lot of households, especially under something like the pandemic. So the timing for the second time around is right.
And at that time, the 90s, it was a birth for all these type of classic shows. I'll read them off to you: Saved by the Bell, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, those Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Saved by the Bell, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, all those sort of TV series, they all came about the same time, and they sort of latched on to this particular sort of an audience, all 4 of them. And it sort of carried through the 90s and the early sort of 2000s and stuff like that. And they've outlasted shows and TV series that have come maybe 20 years after them in terms of their relevance. All 4 seem to find a niche in the market.
Yeah, again, it's has a lot to do with the times and the family structure that now exist in reality. Mixed households. All kinds of, different marriages, people coming together. My granddaughter has like 3 grandfathers. It's just like it's a different nuclear family now. Nothing like the old days of Donna Reed show and Ozzie and Harriet. I mean, it's a whole different thing. And I think those shows, the writing had begun to reflect that. And now today, it's a whole different thing, of course.
And I suppose, Tim, the first season on ABC, despite being really one of the highest rated shows on Friday night, it sort of came to an end for you, that first sort of season, before you were picked up by the WB network. And was there a time before that sort of pick up where you thought yourselves that the project had came to road and well and good, we got 1 season and it was a good ride and stuff like that? And was there a bit of doubt that someone would come along and pick you up like WB, or do you always had a gut feeling that something was in the pipeline when you were dropped?
I was completely surprised. I thought it was over. I mean, it was until the WB, there was no other place that we thought it might work. And when I say we, the producers, for me, I had gone on with my career thinking that something else would come, or writing something for myself. And lo and behold, it was picked up, and the rest is history. It went on for many years after that.
Yeah, and you mentioned that. I suppose for another sort of six seasons in terms of 1994 to 1999,
Mhm.
120 episodes. After 6 seasons, after doing that for sort of 6 seasons, you probably touched every avenue. And do you feel that 6 seasons was the right time? I know every actor loves to have work and loves to have
Yeah.
different projects, but do you feel as a cast that that final season that it was a right time for the show to come to a close?
Well, we don't really have that much to do at that point. Once the show has 100 episodes, it becomes a financial decision. So they have to weigh on how much it costs to do a show and how much it's going to make in syndication. And is it worth adding more episodes? At some point, the profit side is of no return. And also we weren't as high a rating, let's say, as a Seinfeld or something where the audiences would demand us staying,
Mm.
but the cost of the show, and I think the returns reached a point where, why spend the extra money? We already got enough to make millions of dollars in syndication, so let's just shut it down. And I think that's how it all came about. That's, as I said, at that point, we actors are just pawns in the game, and everybody's going for the goal at the end of the rainbow.
And I suppose, Tim, I suppose every show it has its principal characters, and it also has its supporting cast, and they're the fabric of a TV show in terms of that supporting cast, in terms of its longevity. You need to have good supporting actors, and you
Yes.
had really sort of a good few supporting actors. Marquis Houston springs to mind, who
Oh
played
yes.
Roger, and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So, how important was it each season to try and develop these storylines of these supporting characters outside of what went on in your own family home?
Well, it's interesting. I usually, in all the shows prior to that one, I was very involved as a writer and a producer. I wrote several episodes. I never wrote anything for this show, or was, I won't say inspired to write, but never thought that my ideas and views would be something that the producers would be eager to do. I never directed any of the episodes. I just saw it as a wonderful job working with really talented people. And I had fun with Jackie. We were friends for life, and the twins, I adore them. They certainly changed my mind about young people in a positive way. Salt of the earth young ladies. And so it was more of I've been working in the business now for going on 4.5 decades, and done a lot of shows. I've done probably in the neighborhood of 25 television series in my career, more than I think any living actor in Hollywood. So you do them now for different reasons. Of course, money is always part of the equation, but you look for things that will help you creatively express yourself. And this show had reached a point where I thought, it's about these young ladies. I mean, it really isn't. Jackie and I were sort of the backbone. We were part of the plot, but it really was about these young ladies. And had it gone on, it would have been more about them in college and whatever, and we would have been occasionally involved in their lives. So I think that's one of the reasons why it hasn't been reprised, even with the incredible response they've been getting on Netflix. Is what would the show be about? I mean, we'd have to bring into a show like that what's going on in the world today, financial issues, maybe the father's bankrupt, maybe Jackie's divorced, and you'd have to come up with something that would fit more of what is happening in the world today. And the twins would have to, one of them would have to have a child and maybe divorced. I mean, it would have to be something that, why would they come back together after all these years? And so I think that's one of the reasons. It unlike most shows that had an ensemble, ours was really a character driven, close knit family structure. And all the people who played around it either lived in the neighborhood or was dating one of the girls or dating me or ended up or with Jackie getting married. So I don't know how you go beyond that formula, the way it was structured. I
And
can't imagine what the show would be like today.
And in terms of the big screen, in terms of movies, as was that
Mhm.
ever in the pipeline in terms of movies and sequels, in terms of based on the TV series, or a one-off movie, maybe in 6 or 7 years down the line after the TV
Yeah.
series had finished? Was that ever talked about?
No, I think they had talked about doing a come together retrospective show at one point, but it never really caught on.
Okay.
No, I don't know. I mean, I've actually worked with Tia in a movie.
Yeah.
Jackie and I did a Christmas movie together with her. It was a lot of fun. I always enjoy seeing them when we bump into each other. But no, no one has approached me with that. Again, we're all delighted, and I am delighted and surprised at the response to the show now. I think it's found a new place in the hearts and minds of young people. Which is always a wonderful thing.
And I suppose, Tim, in terms of the production week on set now and shooting as
Mhm.
Sister Sister, was it a quick sort of a roll around from the time you got the scripts for each show? Did you come in Monday, do a table read, then maybe a live sort of shoot then of a Friday? Was it 5, 6 days, or what was the sort of working week on set like in terms of Sister Sister?
Well, sitcoms are, I call it, the easiest work in show business. You come in, it's a 5-day work week. You read like you table read. You get on your feet, you try a few things, and you go home. You come back and you block it on a Wednesday or Thursday, and you shoot it on a Friday. And it's usually a 5-day. Towards the end of our last season, I think we were doing 4 days.
Okay.
Everybody was familiar with the plot and everything, but. Yeah, sitcoms are the easiest work in show business. Don't listen to anybody tell you, "Oh, it's so hard." Easiest work in show business. I'm telling you, it's stealing money. But for me, having done all formats, sitcoms, hour shows, and feature films, both in front of and behind the camera, the hardest work I think is the 1 hour drama series, because you have to do pretty
Okay.
much a mini movie every 6 to 7 days, and you're dealing with casts and crews of 80 to 90 people. You're shooting on location. It is the hardest work I've ever done in show business. Movies, you take sometimes you shoot 3 days to shoot one page. I mean, it's difficult, but I mean, in terms of time and the pressure of the work, in terms of what you have to turn out and you have to deliver it, I've seen people break down and cry because you finish one show and it's the greatest show we ever done, and it says, "Well, see you Monday." Or see you tomorrow, and we start all over again, and it has to be delivered in 7 days. And it's like, what? We just worked hard as we ever worked. But sitcoms, easy as work in show business. Don't listen to any actor or producer tells you anything different.
And I suppose, Tim, your own character, Ray Campbell.
Mhm,
How did you saw him when you saw the script for him? When you saw the sort of dialogue, what
mhm.
did you want to? What sort of tone or what sort of way did you want to bring him to life? What sort of perspective did you want to put on that sort of character?
Well, immediately, I haven't, having played certain kinds of sitcom characters, I saw something in this man that a lot of men won't admit. And I figured, oh, it'd be fun admitting finally that most men, when it comes to women in their life, don't have a clue. I mean, we boast about our lives, we act like we're in charge, but literally, most of us can't find our slippers. But I thought, what a fun character, because he's got 3 women in his house. One he's not married to. There were a few occasions where there was a hint of romance, and they dated, I think, briefly. But he has no clue. But he's always, you know, pushing his chest out, and I'm in charge. When in fact, he's a softie, and they got him wrapped around each finger. He loves them all dearly, but I found that to be a more relaxing and fun character to play of anything. The pressure was to do something that's anti to a man, that is, reveal his softness, to reveal his weakness, and in doing so, there were times when I was really very delighted by the opportunity to just be a guy who's doesn't have a clue. He's just there and he's trying to make it work. He's full of love, and he's sort of making it up as he goes. I've met a lot of men like that.
I suppose, Tim, I suppose the final question before I let you go, and I suppose
Mhm.
probably the most difficult question I'll ask you, but it's the one I always sort of finish off these type of
Mhm.
interviews on. Let's pretend there was a sister encyclopedia or a dictionary, and they
Mhm.
put your character in Ray Campbell in the dictionary, and they left two blank sentences underneath. And they
Mhm.
asked you, Tim Reid, after portraying the character Ray Campbell, to write those two sentences. What would you
Mhm.
like those two sentences to read to describe Ray?
Well, that's a good question. I never had anybody asked me to put it that way. I again, I would go back to what I said just a few minutes ago. He's a man who has a good heart, and he is a man who loves being a father, who has had a couple bad turns in life and in either relationships or whatever. And he finds himself as a single man trying to figure it out. And he's hoping that what he can't come up with, one of these three young women in his home will direct him in the right in the right direction, and point to where he should be, and let him know that he's okay. I mean, he's like many men. He's he's trying to make it work, and but not sure sometimes of his outcome. So being guided by three women can't be the worst thing in the world, that's for sure.
Uh, on that note, Tim Reid, an absolute pleasure talking to you today
My
to
pleasure. Thank
relive your memories of your time in Sister, playing the iconic character, the male lead, Ray Campbell. Tim, I
you.
know it's still very much a busy time for you. You've many projects still on the go, and no
Right.
doubt once COVID is over, we'll be hearing many more come late 2020 or 2021
Yeah.
over here in the UK and Ireland. But for the moment, Tim Reid, an absolute pleasure talking to you today, and we wish you and all your loved ones to stay safe and stay healthy in this current pandemic. Tim
Thank
Reid,
you.
take
Yeah.
care.
And I'll be coming over that way soon. Look for me on legacyofappeople network.com.
Cheers. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.